and gentlemen, we are privileged today to have a true expert with us who is on the forefront of engineering transformation with a unique expertise in building muscle memory through the innovative lens of gamification. In his remarkable journey, our orator has left an indelible mark as a leader who not only drives change but also excels in it. Before taking the helm at CTS Tech, he led a team of innovators at Wipro Digital, where he played a pivotal role as a product manager and chief architect, steering the development of the composable DevSecOps platform. Today, he graces our stage to share his golden nuggets of insights on driving engineering standards through the DevSecOps way. Without much further ado, let's welcome Mr. Madhu Madhanan M to the stage for what promises to be a captivating and transformative session. Let's give a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Madhu Madhanan M.
Okay, team, are you able to hear me? Fantastic, thank you. Having some trouble with the mic though. Let me put it back in here. All right, so thank you for having me here. I thought I'll spend some time in walking you through some of the topics that are of interest to you. But before I get started, one quick question to you. How many of you have experienced less than 15 years here? Please raise your hand. Okay, I'm happy we have a young audience. It's really good. Yeah, it's really good to look at some young audience all the time. So that's just me. The only slide that you should not pay attention to is this slide, right? Because there's nothing useful in this, because it's just about me. Just in quick 30 seconds, my area of specialization is DevSecOps 5 years back. So now my area of specialization is how do you do it at scale? How do you integrate site reliability engineering, cybersecurity, all of that stuff, right? I also run Bangalore chapter of Citizen Cyber Labs. So I take care of cyber defense for citizens. We'll talk about it as we go about it. So there are a few things that I thought I'll share in terms of what's going to happen in 3 years from now. Right? So let me ask you this question. How many of you believe you are working on something that will be relevant 3 years from now? Forget today. We know what is today. YouTube is there, Google is there, ChatGPT is there. I'm sure all of you Google search it. So I'm not going to tell you anything that you know or you do today. Let's talk about what you will do 3 years from now. Do you even know what you will be working on 3 years from now? Keep that topic in mind, because what I'm going to talk about today is how do you build a muscle memory of sustainability, reliability, intelligence, all these nice words, right? So the what of it is fairly straightforward. Okay, you Google search it, one line, you'll get hundreds of ways of doing it. You Google search, you go into GitHub. The what of all of these is very easy. What I'll try and do today is try to see the how of it, because the how is where the nuance is, right? And I want all of you to be able to do it in your respective enterprises. Let's see if that's possible. Yeah, we'll start with that. So introduction, yes, I'm a vice president for product engineering. I take care of DevSecOps globally for a company called CTS Tech. We are the biggest US healthcare product company. So all the views and things that I share is my personal opinion. There is no endorsement of CTS Tech. We should make this disclaimer all the time. So yeah, I'm making the disclaimer, right? So let's start with this. Let's see how we do this. Who can identify these two things? I know one you will identify. What is that thing on the top left? Anybody? Anybody? Maybe if I put the specs in place, you should be able to identify it. Let's look at that one. What is that thing on the left? Any idea? No? This you know, right? The one on the right? Yeah? That you know. 1 + 11, 5G. So the thing on the left is what this is. It's Apollo 11's guidance computer. Look at the spec of Apollo 11's guidance computer. And look at the spec of what my daughter uses for watching reels. Yeah, that's the functionality of that, and this is the functionality of this. So we talk about sustainability, right? There is this view that our computing is never enough. Our storage is never enough. So let me tell you, 22 years back, when I started my career, I was an embedded system programmer. Okay, I started with XPGA. Some of you might know. We used to do programming for Kone Lift, right? The first thing my mentor taught me is memory footprint, right? We don't have the luxury of memory footprint. Let me ask you, all of you are DevOps guys, SRE guys, what is the standard size of a Docker container, roughly? Standard memory footprint of a Docker container, anybody? 1 GB, at least 0.5 GB. That is how hungry we have become. It's not that it's not possible to build it, because it is cheap. So when you say sustainability, right, it is first you have to believe that it is possible. Because today you will hear about sustainability, resiliency, intelligence. You cannot implement any of this in your organization if you don't believe in it, right? So definitely see the difference. Do you need this much of spec for watching reels? If I ask this, I can enter my house. Yeah, that's the reality of it, right? But yeah, you can see the difference. A guidance computer that landed man on moon versus something that we watch reels, okay? So that is on sustainability. So next topic is on resilience, right? That's our theme. So let's talk resilience. So before we talk about resilience, since it's usually post-lunch session, I thought I'll make it a little more engaging for you guys. I'll put this up for you. Anybody who can scan this can check and see randomly if you're one, because what I've done is I've done a little bit of programming to see that quiz that we have, right? If you're able to win, there'll be some alerts, just allow it. It's fine, just allow it. See if you're one. If you get an empty form, you have not won anything. If you find a filled form, you have won something. Okay? All right, thank you. I can already hear some noises. So this is my phone. I spoke about sustainability. This is my old OnePlus 5T phone, which I'm going to place over here, just like a magician. It runs on an 8 GB RAM. And let me tell you this, okay? All of you, did you get the Cloudflare link? All of you, did you get the Cloudflare link? What does it show? Not opening at all? Fantastic? Nothing? What did it open? Black screen? Fantastic. All right. So here is what has happened. Let me show you on my phone what just happened. So this is called QR jacking. Okay? What I have just done is hijack this audience. All your phones have been now hacked. Okay? It's called one-click hacking. I just did what is called social engineering. That entire cloud command control center is running out of my old phone over here. Okay? So what I just did is I did a QR jacking. This goes into my command center. When you clicked on allow, I got all the information from your phone. Of course, not your personal information. Latitude, longitude, and if you had clicked on allow for camera, I have your camera as well. Okay? I purposely disabled it so that I don't want your information. So this is a classic case of cybersecurity or a cyber hack. Very, very simple. I set it up in 10 minutes when DevSecOps explanation was happening. And I just thought I'll be responsible and use an old phone, right? So why I said this is when you talk about resiliency, you need to start thinking like a hacker, right? Your resources are low, right? You need to be able to reuse a lot of stuff that you have. So start thinking like a hacker. So if you really want to be a person who can bring in change in resiliency and sustainability and intelligence, you have to start thinking like a hacker. So let me tell you one more thing before we go into our subject. I know I will cover it, don't worry, right? The minute you walked inside this campus, or rather this room, in this old phone of mine, I had set up a scanner, okay? Some of you might be aware of this. I've set up a scanner in which I have captured all your Bluetooth IDs because you have kept all your IDs open, okay? All your Bluetooth IDs, all your Wi-Fi MAC addresses are with me right now. If I hand it over this to a cybercrime division, next time a crime occurs, all I have to set up is old phones in remote places, and as soon as you enter that geofence, I can find out that you have actually entered that place. And you didn't have to do anything, okay? That vulnerable is our systems. So when we say resilience, you need to start thinking like this, and it starts with you, right? So all your Bluetooth IDs, it doesn't change, trust me. Tomorrow I can set it up somewhere in the railway station, and I can spot you as soon as you come in. Without any of your interface, right? You didn't even have to do anything because your Bluetooth is on, your Wi-Fi is on, I know your device, you carry all your device is your digital identity, right? Welcome to the digital world, okay? Now you are going to build applications for people like me and my daughter and my son or any generation later who already have this information and they can do it in 10 minutes. You might not know. Do ChatGPT, you know how to do what I did in 10 minutes. Now you're going to build applications for this generation. That requires a different kind of thinking, right? So with that thought, let's go into our topic. Yeah, let's look at this first. So who are you guys? Let's understand this first, right? Are you any one of this? Are you building? For your generation or for your next generation? Most of the times we speak about, I do fantastic work, I have great resiliency for systems that exist today. Think about it, are you building for your generation or the next generation? What about this one? Classic case of me. There is one whole generation of people who don't even understand stuff that I say. Yeah, that is very true. And in the capacity as in executive leadership team, they won't even give you the feedback they didn't understand. But this is true. If you have experience over 20 years, whatever you say is anyways irrelevant to them. Right? Classic case is that. They'll say, oh, the old man, boomer, he doesn't understand stuff. Right? Happens. But you have to build for them, right? You have to build for them. You have to build for their kids. You have to build for their kids. That's when you stay relevant. So how do we do that? What about this one? Sustainability, resilience, intelligence. Do you even know how to resonate this with newer technology? Or to the newer workforce? I will bring in a college kid, just pass out of college. We'll make him sit in the front row. I bet my bottom dollar. You speak for 5 minutes on sustainability, resilience, and intelligence, they won't understand a thing about it. They don't understand Java class itself, that's a different story. Right? But yeah, they won't understand a thing about this. Right? But it has to be told in that language. Right? For that, you should become very familiar with that language. So while it is a larger topic of how we do it, I'm going to pick up one small area, which is standards as code. How do we do this in scale and make it relevant for the next generation? Right? You will make it relevant for the next generation only if you simplify it. Do you agree? As an audience, do you agree? Simplification is easy, right? If you can explain it to a 6-year-old, you understand the topic. It's a known adage, right? Everybody knows this. So how do you make adopting standards, writing standards, a lot more easier so that they shouldn't feel like it? Okay, so let me ask you this question, right, before we go into the standards as code. I want to spin up a Linux server, right, on which I want to run, let's say, some Apache web server. How long does it take for me to set this up? Anybody says more than 1 day here? You are living in old world, right? If you say in your company you can do it in 10 minutes, let me know which company that is. I want to join that company, okay? Because today in technology, you can open Amazon and do it in 5 minutes. Yes? You can definitely do it in 5 minutes. So where is standards in this? How do you apply standards in this? It has changed, right? Look at the people who write standards. Have you seen people who write standards in your organization? They're older than me, generally. Yeah? So generally they're older than me. They understand policies, audits, regulations. I come from a healthcare industry. We are filled with that, right? Auditors, they want emails printed in paper so that we can show it to them, right? In that world, how do you really bring in standards as code? That's what we're going to talk about today, right? For that, for you to understand whatever I'm going to say right now, there is one important thing. If anything that you want to take back, this is the only one line you have to take back, which is this. You have to understand today's design, right? The previous session on IDP, right? I know IDP for the last 4 years. It's a fantastic system, right? You need to understand it for you to build systems that will work 2 years from now, minimum, right? Don't be happy that you've learned what is today. That's not enough. You have to build systems for 2 years from now, right? Now with that in mind, let's talk about what is called simplification. There's an even simpler term, it's called standardization, but I'll give it a little twist to it. It's called industrialization. Industrialization of DevSecOps is what standard as code is, right? Let's get into the topic. All right. So this is my topic for today. So I know I have about 10 minutes to do this topic. I'll give you the slides, so don't worry about all that stuff, right? Important, you have to understand the key principle behind it. I'm not going to make you an expert in standards as code, but you will see you don't even need that expertise because you already know it. For you to understand this topic, there are 3 words you should understand. Just 3 words. All the ones in blue. Can you give me an example of engineering standards? Anybody? Any engineering standards that you know that we need to follow? Anybody? I thought we had a younger crowd who will be more active. Come on, guys. Lunch is too heavy, is it? IEEE, okay. DORA standards, okay. Interesting. All right. So let's look at this, right? So when we talk about this, there is the what and the how. So we're going to talk about both of these, right? So this is what it is. So we all know what a standard is. We all know what a standard is. Invariably, 50% of us will be wrong, okay? Because the IEEE definition is something else. We will understood something else. We have our own standards and stuff. But generally, we can assume we know what a standard is. The next question is, how do you define it? How do you define standards? It's English, right? A standard is in English. It's either a document or a PDF document that is usually in English. Can we change that? And how do you implement it? These are the 3 things we're going to talk about it. What is a standard? How do you implement it as code? And what is the way in which you will implement it, since we are all DevSecOps guys, right? Now let's look at what an engineering standard is. I'm going to go a little bit quick, but if you have questions, please feel free to raise your hand and stop me. Here is what it is. This is my industry. right? These are all standard terms that we encounter every day. We take home salary to explain to people what these are. Okay, good salary they give us to explain those, right? Do you know at least 5 of them in that? You are in good zone, if you know, right? Then, internally within an organization, we create our own standards, which is this set. Architecture, architects in the room. Yes, we have architecture standards that needs to be followed. Absolutely immutable. Nothing we can do. We need architecture review board. User experience standards, compliance standards, technical and security data. All these are standards, right? These are not regulatory standards. These are your enterprise standards. So let's take this and go to our favorite place, which is this. Continuous engineering, right? We have all of these stuff that we have to do, right? And the definition of all of this is very, very different for every organization, right? So if you work in a GSI, a global service integrator, the definition is different. If you work in a product, it is different. So all of them have their own standards like this. So at the end of the day, the poor developer, okay, needs to understand all of these stuff and still deliver how much? 1 normalized story point per day, correct? Saves, this one is this, right? 1 normalized story point per day. You have to deliver. So how do we do this? It becomes like this. Let's look at this. So you have coding standards. So what does the developer get impacted with? You have coding standards, testing validation standards, security standards, process standards, regulatory compliance standards, a bunch of standards that you have to enable, right? Who has written it? Like I told you, remember, people who are older than me, okay? Or at least as old as me. Who is implementing it? People who just come out of college, right? There is a whole generation gap. The guy who wrote it in English has no clue how it is implemented in code. The guy who is writing in code will understand it only when the review happens, that he has missed something completely different. Now that is the gap you have to bridge, right? Now that's what we're trying to do in saying, how do I really translate old people's English into young people's code? That is standards as code, right? So this is standard. Let's look at the next word that we are talking about, right? Oh, this is classic, right? Standards are always only in this format, right? You know all these icons, right? SharePoint, PDF, Confluence, sometimes text files, sometimes MOMs. Standards comes in all formats. Now let's look at the next one. Okay, what is a taxonomy of a standard, right? What does a standard look like, right? You know what a standard is? In simple terms, this is what a standard is. Don't let anybody say anything. It was not blank by intentionally, so it is coming a little slow. There it is, okay? Now, engineers in the room, please tell me, is there anything in this that cannot be codified? Is there anything in this that cannot be codified? Cannot be written as a JSON file? Cannot be written as a YAML file? Is there anything here that cannot be written? Now question yourself, why are you not writing it like that? Today, when you become leads and managers, you will still write Word documents. You will still write Excel sheets. You will still make PPT like how I made one, right? Why are you not writing as code, as default? It has to start with you. That is the culture you have to change. Start writing parsable, computable documents in JSON, YAML, Kotlin, whatever format you want. But start with it. All of this is codifiable. I'm going to show you some examples of it. Let's go to the next one here. So how do you define as code? Welcome to the world of plenty. Standards as code? Have a look at this. Yes, I have configuration as code, pipeline as code, process definition as code, controls as code, infra, security, metrics. The only thing that is not available as code, what is it? If that was there, this will be complete. Do you know what it is? Common sense as code. If we had that, no, we would have got the best solution in the whole world. Apart from it, we have everything, right? Now, what a standard is? A standard is one or more combination of this. So the question is, why standards are not as code, right? It's very simple. You just have to put your mind to it. After your, let's say, Saturday night beer, you will immediately get the answer to this. It's not even complicated. It's just we have not taken the effort to do it. And that's why I'm saying, this is what software will be 2 years from now. Start thinking on those lines. And there are already tools. For example, DeepFactor. I spoke to the gentleman from DeepFactor, right? Has APIs. You can interface with it. Immediately, you can write an adapter for it. DeepFactor controls as code. You can put it into that. Same thing with, where is the other one? Cast, right? Or 24/7. All of these are supporting whatever we want to write in terms of as code models. So have a look at that, right? So now we already know we have the ingredients to make it, right? Which is all of these are available as code. Let's go to the next one. Our favorite. We always do things the DevOps way, right? Now you ask at least 10 people in this way, what is the DevSecOps way? 10 different definitions are already available for us, right? You ask them 2 more times, they'll give you 100 different definitions. But for our conversations right now, let's have some understanding, okay? what we will do, we will follow abstraction, which is what? We will not integrate these solutions into the pipeline. We will abstract it as business standards. Why? Because as engineers, you should never write standards. You should create systems in which business teams can write standards. So create a two-factor or a two-layered model wherein people who understand controls, understand security, can use a business language to write it, and you can create a parser that can convert this business language into a solution. Don't worry, I'll show you a practical solution also. And I know if I'm running out of time, please flag me, I'll quickly wrap. Yeah? All right. So business language for standards. What language to use? Simple, right? We are all technologists. BDD is written in what language? Behavior-driven development is written in what language? Gherkin? No? It's okay. It's fine. We are DevOps guys. We don't understand testing. It's a different story. It's a different group. We'll talk to that group later. So it is written in English. So Gherkin is a system that can read this in English spec files, right? So write it in a way that old people like me can write it in business language, and you can write parsers that can convert this business language, which is English, into the corresponding tools language. Then you are relevant for the next 2 years. If you all want 40% hike in your salary and you want promotion in the next 2 years or 1 year, do things like this. You will improve the industry itself up. Yeah? Let's look at the next one. Standards engine, that is what you're responsible for. You're responsible for writing standards engine so that you can use it. This classic one, do I write one standard? No, you usually have a standards library, right? So have a mechanism to have standards library that it can run for you. And federated enforcement. How do you enforce it in your pipelines? We'll see about it as an example. And then of course, the left is the favorite for everybody in this crowd. I do it the DevOps way. What is it? Today, all standards, configurations, and thresholds in any tool, there are 472 popular DevOps tools in the industry. All of these tools support API-based configuration, or at least the console-based configuration, or let's say a command line-based configuration. So native support already exists. Start thinking like that, right? I can give you a straightaway answer. That's the last slide before we go into seeing how we do it. But I want you guys to think about this, because this will make your life a lot more easier, and you will become the most valuable person in your own enterprise. Yeah? What is the next one? I will do custom support. There are some tools that does not support. For that, you have to write custom support. So what's the language? By going by today's conference theme, write it in Go. He gave a score of 23. Niladri gave a score of 23. So Python, he gave 83. So let's not do Python, let's do Go. If you want to go with a more sustainable way of doing it. If you want to write it in C, write it in C as well. But write some custom support. But remember, these 6 things are important for you to write standards as code. And as a DevOps engineer, it's important that you guys start doing this so that it is easy for teams to adopt it. Yeah? Let's look at this next then. Okay? Classic question. What big deal? We are automation guys. We do this every day. Isn't it? What are you saying? Write a code, write a parser, write an automation. I do this every day. Isn't it? Don't you do this? All DevOps engineers, every day you have bread, butter, jam, knife, everything is that only. Isn't it? So what's the big deal? The big deal is one small difference, which is this. Can you do it at industrialized, federated model? Oh, okay. Sorry, wrong switch. We'll go into this. Don't worry, guys. This is all for you to read only. So you should be able to do it at an industrialized fashion, which means the consumer need not know the complexity of what you built. Federated, which means anybody in your organization should be able to contribute to it and also do it at scale, and you should be able to orchestrate it, right? That's the key things of how we do this at scale. So now I'm going to go very quickly and then cover how it is done. I know because I'm going to be running out of time very soon. Here's a classic example. I don't know if you noticed in the previous session, we spoke about Capital One as an example. This is an example of automated governance in action for Capital One. What they've done is they've taken this 16 gates model and embedded this into a pipeline. No big deal. But if you're able to make this into standards and then have the configuration and standard outside the pipeline, you have made a difference. Now that is standards as code. Because when you make standards as code, the entire standards lifecycle can be managed as a code. Here's an example of it. Google search it, you will get it. It's not even my picture, right? All right, let's go through this one. How do you do it at scale? When you talk about automated governance, a standard always has hierarchies, right? A standard is not a single standard. So build it in a way that you have enterprise standards, you might have product group level standards, There will be thresholds that will have variables depending on the maturity of the team. You have variable threshold frameworks. You have thresholds and targets which the application team will commit to, saying, I will do it, and then have them written in YAML or JSON. Okay? So from where does all this come up? Very simple. There is one document. There is only one document in the entire internet that talks about this. It's called Automated Governance by John Willis. There are two diagrams that are there. You guys will immediately understand what this is. It talks about how do you look at a particular stage in your CI/CD pipeline and then look at what are the risk actors controls that go around it. You can take this, convert it into standards, and make it enforceable. Okay? So last 3 minutes of my talk is going to show you how this is done, and you will see what big deal. Whatever I have spoken right now, I'm going to show you how it can be done in the last 2 minutes. Yeah? Let's look at this now. Here is an example. Here is a classic example of standards as code. I've written a simple JSON file that has a set of configurations that will get applied across tools, Bootstrap, and root to life. All of these are various standards that they have defined, and for each of these standards there is a tool, and for each of the tool there is a configuration. What we've written is a JSON file that you can parse, call the relevant automations, and enforce all of this in day one. Okay? Look at the top part at least. In your current organization, you might have to raise about 3 to 4 service requests for you to even get that first part done. We are talking about having standards as code that can do this all in under 10 minutes. Right? Here's an actual example of how this entire system looks like. So how do you get this done? How do you make this going? I'll just give you a minute to go through what it looks like. For each of the line item over there, there is a tool, there is a configuration, and there is an automation around it. Is it very complicated to build? Actually, no. It's fairly straightforward. So here are all the classic ingredients that go into making at an enterprise level. Okay? So all the components that is required for you to do standards as code in an enterprise is listed over here. There are 12 components that make up the overall system. If you build this is a fantastic startup idea. Let me tell you this also. All people who want to run your own startups, if you're able to build this system, I can guarantee you there are already people willing to buy this from you. Right? So if you want to run your own startup, here is a very good idea for you to start with. Right? But since 150 people have already heard it, so it's first come, first serve. Yeah? That includes me. I'll also try. Yeah? All right. So that's all the various components that go into making it. The reason why I'm not going into the details of it is, right, you'll get bored and feel sleepy. Because every component you know already. I'm not saying anything new at all. What would be new is your ability to look at an opportunity to convert English documents into code and go through this particular system. You can build the system in under 1 day, let me tell you this. If you're going to do it for a team, you can build the system in under 1 day. And when I show you how it is, you will be able to complete it as well. So last slide for the day. Let's cook it like we all like recipes, right? This is how it's going to look like. Okay? We need a standards as a code orchestrator. Orchestrator, everybody's favorite Jenkins. I put Jenkins over there. Let's say we use GitOps. Then we have this, a runtime policy engine that is written on OPA, already available. Jenkins also is already available. Then finally, we have the standard scanner. To put this together, a good DevOps engineer will require 1 day. A good DevOps engineer with ChatGPT will require half a day. Okay? That's all it takes to build. This will work for up to 100 teams. Okay? It's built on all the components that you know. Maybe one component you might not know is OPA. That's also not a big deal. Open Policy Agent. You build this, you have created a foundation for you to start doing standards as code. Which means any tool, any new tool that comes in, all you have to do is create one adapter for that tool, and your standards as code will be ready. Yeah? So that's all I had for today. This is a very classic example of how it is being done. So yeah, so thank you.